The digital space has taken over. Whether it's making money, spending money, or creating relationships virtually, the internet has proven to be a lasting way to live life. City Girl Savings wouldn't be where it is today without the internet. If you've been wanting to dip your toe into the digital waters, becoming a virtual assistant, also known as a VA, can be a great way to do so. That's why I'm so excited to talk with Shatoria of Countin Mama today about what it means to be a virtual assistant and how anyone can get started. There are a lot of benefits that come from the online space, so why not get a piece of the pie? Welcome to the City Girl Savings Podcast. I'm Rhea Reeves, founder and finance coach of City Girl Savings. I turned my life around with budgeting many years ago, and now I'm on a mission to help others do the same. I fully believe that you can enjoy your life on a budget, and this weekly show will focus on the intersection of money and the city girl lifestyle. Join me every week along with some special guests as I share my experiences, advice, and guidance on navigating life and money as an experience-loving millennial. Shatoria is the founder of Countin Mama, a blog and business set up to document her journey to becoming debt-free. Shatoria is also the founder of SL Smith, a virtual solutions company offering bookkeeping and Dubsado services to female entrepreneurs. Shatoria also serves as a mentor to women looking to become virtual assistants themselves. Now, Shatoria and I met on Instagram, and I love the guidance she gives to people learning how to break into the VA industry. A little bit more about Shatoria: she lives in Florida with her family and loves HGTV. Hi, Shatoria. I'm really excited to dive into our conversation today, but before we talk about VA and all that good stuff, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Rhea. Absolutely. And thanks for having me today. So I am a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, and I'm a fiance getting married in July of next year.
Yay.
And I'm a mom of 3 boys, ages 5, 3, and 1. So I am very busy, and I'm so glad that you have me on today to talk about virtual assisting and how I managed to do that in addition to working full-time, being a mom, and now planning a wedding. A little about my background: I have a bachelor's degree in accounting, a MBA in finance, and I have about going on 11 years of experience in the government and education industries. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
So I read that you started Countin Mama, as a way to kind of document your journey to becoming debt-free. How did you make the decision to actually start that blog and business, and what really prompted you to get into the online world?
Good question. So after I had my first son, I wanted to do something about my debt. I don't know if his birth just triggered me to just starting to think differently. So I've always had an Instagram account, and I guess you could say I was following ratchet things on Instagram. So I was like, well, let me start a new account and start a blog and just start talking about my journey. And that's pretty much how I started it. And another reason why I started was because as an African-American woman, I didn't see at that time a lot of accounts that looked like me where they would talk about money. And when it comes to my heritage and my ethnicity, we don't really talk about money. It's a taboo thing where it's like, don't tell people how much you make, or if you make money, go buy something. So it's like you wear your wealth as opposed to investing it or even practicing good personal finance habits like budgeting or saving. Saving is something that was never really talked about. So I wanted to use Countin Mama as a way to have those conversations about wealth, about saving money, about budgeting, and eventually talking about my experience with student loan debt and where I stand. I went to a private school, 2 private schools actually, and I had 6-figure debt. And people frown and look at you crazy when you say that. And it is a little embarrassing, but it helps to talk about it because now it's like, although this is what I have, I do have a plan to get out of that. When I created this account and I started coming across various accounts of other individuals, whether they were African American or maybe Hispanic or they were women, whatever it was, it made me feel better to know like, wow, I'm not the only one out here, because not putting myself out there, I wouldn't even have known that other people struggle with the same things that I struggle with. And
Absolutely.
the thing that I like about putting myself out there is pretty much how virtual assistant fell into my lap.
Interesting. Okay, I definitely want to talk about that, but you made
Okay.
such a good point. You said that, yes, it was a little bit embarrassing to put your situation out there, but you did it with a plan, right? You said, this is my situation and here's my plan. And I feel like that alone can inspire so many, right?
Mm.
A lot of times people are all in common situations, but the difference between the people who take forward movement and make progress and the people who don't are the ones that have a plan. So you having that and sharing that, I'm certain it inspired people to see that, hey, I'm not alone and I can make small forward steps as well.
That's so true. And I didn't graduate from college last year or 5 years ago. Graduated from college from undergrad in 2007, and I got my master's in 2010. So seeing a lot of millennials graduating and paying off their debt inspired me to be like, you know what? Although I'm not fresh out of school, I can still get out there and do it too. Like there's nothing in my way but me, you know?
Yes.
So why not? If they can do it, I can do it. And I keep that in my head, like, it is possible. You have all these other people out here doing it, or even people who may not have paid it completely off yet, but they've made great strides towards paying it off. That's encouraging as well.
Yes, absolutely. So now I'm curious because I know, you technically have two companies, right? If we think about Coin Countin Mama and then we think about SL Smith Solutions, what came first? Like, what was the dynamic between going from one to the other?
So Coin Countin Mama came first. I can't even tell you when. I think it was like 2018. And like I created my account, but I sat back for a while before I even published any content because of imposter syndrome. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't have all these followers. I don't even know what my colors were. I was caught up on the wrong thing as opposed to just focusing on the message that I want to put out there. And it took a while for me to get to that point. But I said, you know what? I'm going to just start talking about this stuff and sharing things about budgeting, because if you budget, that will ultimately help you to be able to pay off your debt. Like you got to have a plan. You can't just say, I'm going to pay off debt, but there's no plan of action. Like, how are you going to get there? People often say like, well, I don't make enough. I don't do this. Well, you can cut back. I'm not saying that you can't get your hair done. You can't get your nails done, but you just have to have a plan of how you're going to do things and how frequent, let's say, you're going to do them. So for me, I used to get my nails and my feet done every other week. Then it was like, maybe I can stretch it out and do like every 5 weeks or once a month, or, I can hold off a little bit during certain times of the year, cutting out eating fast food every single day, taking my lunch to work, doing small steps like that. You're saving money, and then you can put that money towards building a savings account or putting it towards your debt, whether it's not student loan or even medical debt. Just having a plan and doing something with it.
Yeah.
And still being able to live your life.
So once you kind of decided, you know what, I'm not going to let the brand colors and those things kind of get in my way. I'm going to get the message out there. That's really when you started. So it sounds like Coin Countin Mama came first.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And then how did the virtual solutions company come into play?
So the virtual solutions company came into play when I felt like people were missing the message that Coin Countin Mama was putting out there, because they would like my post and then send me DMs saying, I like your graphics. Oh, I like this image. I like that. And in my head, it's like, did you read what I said? Like, are you reading the content? Oh, it's very good. But I like how you use this font with that or that shadow. And I was receiving so many DMs on a regular basis to the point where it was like, am I doing something wrong? Like, why is everybody asking me about this? And I tell people, I use Canva. And they're like, well, what do you do in it? I just use it, like, I don't know. And I was talking to a friend of mine, like, everybody's asking me about Canva. She's like, they don't ask you about budgeting. I'm like, no, they're asking me about Canva. She's like, well, maybe you should create graphics. I'm like, well, how do you do that? Like, and the funny thing is, at work, I was making like pamphlets, manuals, training guides. I did all of that stuff at work, but I never thought about it like that. It was just like, well, it's work. They just asked me to do it. I made programs at church. I've made worksheets for my mom. She's a chemistry teacher. So all those things, I had the experience, but I've just always like brushed it off. It was just like, oh, I like doing it, but I never thought that I could monetize it.
Right.
So when I thought about it, I said, well, can I really do this? And I had one lady in particular who reached out to me, I think on a monthly basis, to the point where I was like, okay, I'll create some graphics for you. Like, she's like, well, what do you need me to do? How much is it going to cost? And then there's another struggle. It's like, oh, she wants to pay me for this? Like,
you're like, oh,
yeah, like, what am I supposed to charge? And here I am going to Google, how much should I charge? Because it's like, I don't know. I've never did this before. Like, once I create it, how is she supposed to get it? And then how is she supposed to contact? So all these thoughts were just popping in my mind about like, how am I supposed to communicate with this lady? When am I supposed to deliver them to them? Or what is this? Or what is that? What are her brand colors? So I just sat down and wrote some things down and said, okay, well, I think this would work. And we created like our communication between each other. And she gave me what she wanted. I created it. And she's like, oh, great. Can you make some more?
wow.
So then it was like, okay, I'll make some more, but it's going to cost this to do. Okay, that's fine. It's like, oh, well, is it that easy to do this? Like, okay. So after that, on Instagram, people have like giveaways or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a girl that's like, oh, I have a giveaway for my VA course that she was just starting. And I entered it and I won. So,
oh my gosh.
Okay, I won this girl's how to start your VA business in 6 weeks, whatever. So I did it. And for the most part, it was a very informative course. And oddly enough, some of the things that I thought of when I was working with this individual over here, it was mentioned in the course. So it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm not too far off from what she was talking about. But then she went into more of like VA systems that I necessarily wasn't familiar with, or like onboarding. Onboarding to me, it's just like onboarding. Like, what are you talking about? But when she went through it, I related it to my onboarding experience at work. So it's like, oh, okay, this is what that is. Okay. So everything started, like the puzzle pieces started to fall in place. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and create SL Smith and use that as a way, as my side hustle to help me pay off my debt.
Wow.
So I did that. And then I got pregnant again. So it was like, okay. So now I'm pregnant again, got 2 babies, ages 2 and under. And now we got daycare. So it's like, ooh, all right, so I'm going to have to step back from the debt a little bit and use this extra income to help pay for daycare and to help us stay on top of our bills, because we were in the middle of building a new house, living in an apartment temporarily. And it's like, all right, we're moving into this house. We got to pay these deposits. We got to do this and do that. So the income that I was making from that was helping us with paying those deposits and buying groceries and doing whatever it was we needed to do to make ends meet. And I ended up picking up like 2 new clients. It's like, all right, cool. So I'm making calendars, updating like podcast graphics in Canva, creating headers for like Instagram groups or things like that. And I enjoy doing things like that, to the point where when I was creating graphics for Coin Count Mama, I'd sit there for like an hour watching TV, doing whatever. And I'm just, doing whatever.
Having
because
fun.
I really like doing it. Yeah, it's fun. So I said, okay, well, I'll start my business. And I started engaging with small business owners on Instagram under my new account. So I ended up putting Coin Count Mama to the side and launching this new account and focusing on that. Then COVID happened. And I kind of just stepped back from it all because I'm like, oh, everybody's freaking out. So I thought I was like, oh, I need to freak out too. Like, oh, but oddly enough, when COVID happened, more online businesses started reaching out, which was weird to me. It's like, why are they reaching out now? But okay, yeah, I'll sign up and do whatever. And then I got to the point where it's like, okay, I have too many clients. So now what do I do? Because I was still working my full-time job. I have my boys at home now because the daycare was closed and I'm home from work. And it's like, I want to be able to do something that I really love and not dread doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized I needed to pick the task that I really like doing because I was making PDF documents, typing, data entry. I was trying to do it all. And I was like, I really like doing graphics. So the PDFs, the calendars, the data entry, I stopped doing that because I said, if I stop doing that, I could probably take on another client that wants me to make the graphics. And that's something that I like doing anyway. So I'd rather do things that I love to do as opposed to, although I know how to do it, I can do it, but I don't like it, but I can. So it's like, I don't want that mindset of doing things I don't like to do because that kind of puts me back in that corporate world where it's like, oh, you can do this task. And in your head, it's like, I don't really want to do that, but I'll do it because it's work.
You know, I think you lead me to ask a question that I really want the listeners to get clear on is what exactly is a VA, right? Mm. Because from what I'm hearing, it can be all sorts of things. It can be what you want it to be, and it can end up being something you don't want it to be, right? So can you describe what a VA is? And then, I do want to finish this conversation of how you decided to shift to what you want. But let's do that first for the listener.
So a virtual assistant is an independent contractor, and they support business owners with various tasks. So you could be a virtual assistant who focuses just on administrative tasks, or maybe you're a virtual assistant who helps with the invoicing and the bookkeeping side of things. Or you could be a virtual assistant who helps with the systems, like making sure like HoneyBook, Dubsado, ClickUp, and all those various systems are functioning and everything is working the way that they should be. Or you're going in and troubleshooting, doing things like that. You could be a virtual assistant who is a copywriter, somebody who proofreads, somebody who writes blog posts. So there's so many different avenues where it's like virtual assistant is like this center. And then there's so many avenues that shoot out from it. And the good thing is you create it how you want it to be. So it's not like there's this manual to say, this is what a virtual assistant is. And you have to have X, Y, Z, blah, 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 blah. One thing I will say with being a virtual assistant, if you have internet, that's basically all you need. You need the internet, be able to be resourceful, and be willing to learn. Because I found that, like you mentioned earlier, how I was doing Dubsado, I didn't know what Dubsado was in the beginning. I was working with a photographer who recently signed up for Dubsado. It's like, hey, I just want somebody to help me maintain it. Can you do that? Yeah, I could do it. She didn't know I couldn't do it, but I was willing to take on the task because I figured it shouldn't be too hard. And it wasn't. Like, it has its own nuances and it's funky or whatever, but once you get the hang of it, it's not bad. But she helped me with learning some things where she was like, if you don't know everything, I can teach you. And I found that in the virtual space, a lot of these business owners, they know how to do it and they'll teach the virtual assistant how to do it. And then with them teaching you, you get to learn it directly from them and then learn how it works in their business. So not only are you helping them out, they're helping you in a sense too. So the more you do it, it's like, wow, I'm learning how to become a systems strategist. And so now I can take that as a service if it's something that I really like and offer that as a service to help somebody else. So that's why I'm virtual assisting. There's so many different paths you can take because depending on who you work with, you're always learning something new. So you can say like, yeah, I started doing graphics, but I don't think I want to do graphics anymore. I think I want to focus on systems. Or maybe somebody it's like, oh, well, I worked with somebody that had a podcast and I was writing notes for her. So it was like, oh, this is different. I can write notes and proofread and do whatever like that. It just takes you in so many different areas. And I think that's the beauty of virtual assisting. And if you don't like something, stop doing it and focus on something else. And I think business owners like virtual assistants because one, they don't have to pay like insurance or health benefits like that. they can create a Loom video or a YouTube video to say, hey, this is what you need to do, and I'll train you how to do that. You watch it as many times as you need to, and as long as you're able to generate the output for them, it's fine. As long as you meet that deadline, everything is good.
So you mentioned that the beauty of being a VA is that it can go so many different routes, which I agree. I think that really gives person creative control. But I think in the beginning for new VAs, it could also be a little bit dangerous, right? Because, someone like me, I would want to excel at all the things, and you can't be perfect at everything. So what advice would you give to someone who is just starting and maybe they don't know what they like, but they are coming to the table with this notion that they can't be perfect at everything? What advice would you give to maybe help them decide what their niche should be?
So I would tell them, like, for me, I try to do everything, and it created a burnout to the point where I did want to walk away from it, but I realized I created this burnout on myself because I wanted to do everything. And I would recommend them narrowing down to maybe the top 3 things and then try each thing individually. Like if you have a client that says, hey, I want you to do data entry, see if you like doing the data entry for that client. So when that next client comes along and they're like, well, I don't have data entry, I have something else, and that something else is your number 2, try that number 2 task that you like to see if you like it. So if you like that number 2 task, you can just automatically say, okay, out of those 3 things, I don't want to do data entry anymore. I want to focus on this. So think about what you want to do, or maybe even think about what you want to do and where you would like to go. So you can even take some of those things and see how you can pivot or navigate your way to where you want to be, which is what happened with the Dubsado. I knew about this system. I just didn't know how to use it. And this photographer was willing to take a chance on me to learn how to use it. And when she did, that helped me out because it allowed me to go in and dibble dabble and play with it. And I knew I couldn't break it. If it was something that I created, I could just go in there and delete it. I just know that I need to make sure it was ready to go when it needed to be ready to go for her. And I didn't spend hours on top of hours doing it. Like some of the learning for me took place on my own time. That wasn't something that I would charge to the client, but in the end, it benefits me. So
yeah, I think that's great advice. And I love this thought of experiment, right? If you really have no idea, just don't be afraid to say yes to things and figure out what you like and then kind of pivot and go from there.
Exactly.
Okay. So this journey for you, basically you started as a VA and then you started doing all the things and you got to this point where you were like, okay, I only like doing these things. At what point did you pivot or transition to helping other women become VAs?
So this year, I decided to come back to Countin Mama because I said, I have a platform over there where I don't even remember how many followers I have because I think at this point I stopped really paying attention to the followers. But I just had this base of individuals where I said, I know people over here want to know about side hustles because I always saw things about side hustles. So I was wondering, well, what could I put out there that would appeal to my network on Countin Mama for those people who want to pay off debt? Like, what can they do? Because, yeah, I talk about budgeting and all of that, but I don't have the money to budget. They may not even pay attention to wanting to see about budgeting. So I shared a post. It was something along the line of, I made like $300 or $500, something like that in my first virtual assistant year, maybe like $330 or something like that. And I posted it. And like I use a scheduler for my posts, so I don't really go back and look at it. But the next day I went on Instagram and I was like, oh my God, like who all these people following me? Like it tripped me out. So it's like, what? So I'm like, what did I post? And when I went back and looked at it, I said, oh, like they want to see this. And people are like, how could I get started? What do I need to do? How could I? It's like, whoa, okay. So then I said, well, let me create another post. And that post took off. So then I said, well, let me create a reel. And then that took off. So I said, oh, okay, this is what people want to hear about. And I just tried to put the content out there in a way where it could be relatable for like everyday women, because it's so easy to see people on Instagram talking about, well, I'm a booked out VA and I made 6 figures in 2 days. And it's like, that's great. But for those of us who, like me, work a full-time job, you have young children, your young children are in soccer or swimming or whatever it is, what can I do that's not going to require hours on top of hours of me working? And so that's why with a lot of my posts, I'll say, oh, I did this working less than 5 hours a week or working 20 hours a month, because I want them to see that it's possible. Like, I can sit here, start making dinner for my boys, hop on the computer for about 20 minutes and do something really quick, go handle them, put them to sleep, and then come back on for maybe like an hour. So that's an hour and 20 minutes right there. It's not necessarily an hour of just straight time on the computer. I can do it in 30-minute intervals. Somebody takes a nap. Oh, let me hop on real quick. Or at least get started with this, go away and come back. And a lot of times when I go away and come back, it helps to refresh my mind. So whatever creative direction I was going in, I might say, oh, I don't even like that anymore. I think I want to do it this way. And it's just being able to be in control of what you're doing, controlling your time, planning your time, managing your time in a way that works for you. And that's the thing that I think women, not necessarily, I'm not even going to say moms, I think it's just women in general, because we're expected to do so much,
Yes.
And it's like, when am I going to take time out to do something for myself? And that's something that we all as women struggle with. You're so quick to put others first. You may even have like a puppy or something, and it's like, oh, I got to make sure my dog. But it's like, when are you going to do something for you?
Yeah.
So it's like, doing this is for me because I want to be able to pay off my debt. I like nice things, and I'm going to buy nice things for myself because I deserve it. I told a friend of mine, I like to buy brand products at the store. I don't like buying store brand items. I refuse to do that because I've never did that as a child. And to me, it tastes differently. I don't care. They in the same factory. I like Kraft cheese over store brand cheese. So I'm going to buy my Kraft cheese. But I just feel like we deserve to live a good life. And if you're working in a job that may not be in the place to give you a raise, you should be able to give yourself a raise by becoming a virtual assistant, doing things that you love to do. And when you do that, you have no problem showing up to get the job done.
Ooh, yes. And this leads me into my next question, which is, what are some of the benefits of working as a VA? And I think one of the most important ones is time freedom or flexibility,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like if you are a mom and your kids are up during the day, but you get up 2 hours earlier in the morning before they do, you can get work done and you can do it in between dinner, right? You don't have to be at your desk from 9 to 5. I think that's such a big benefit. But what would you say some other benefits of being a VA are?
Being able to work from anywhere.
Oh,
All I need is my laptop and a Wi-Fi connection, because everything I use is a web-based application. So as long as that internet is running and my computer is functional, I'm good. Like, I've usually in the summertime, we go visit my mom. So the good thing is I have my kids with me to go see my mom, and I can sit at her dining room table and crank out a lot of things while they're outside in the yard or playing with my dad. Get so many things done. We've traveled before and the boys are asleep because we wore them out at the theme park. Sit there, and I don't even take all day. It might be like an hour. Like, let me just get this done and get that out the way. I also like that I can wear whatever I want to wear. I don't have to worry about what I need to put on. I don't have to worry about combing my hair sometimes, because a lot of it, I'm in my PJs anyway. I determine how often I learn, or if I want to learn something new. Do I want to take a certification? Because if I take a certification to become a Dubsado specialist or a ClickUp professional, whatever it is, or QuickBooks certified pro advisor, I can do that. And the best part is, like with QuickBooks, it's free. A lot of these programs have free educational trainings that they approve by their organization for people like virtual assistants to better themselves and to learn how to use that product. And then they create databases for you to fill out, say that you're certified, and they'll advertise your services on their site if you just check the database. So there's so many advantages to it. And then other things, you get to determine how much you make. And it's so funny. I did a story today about like being able to pick your prices. Whereas if you're a brand new virtual assistant, I'm not going to just walk in and be like, well, I'm going to charge $300 an hour. Like, that's crazy. But at least start at like no less than $25 an hour.
Yeah.
And if you have 5 clients under your belt and you've done an exceptional job with those clients, give yourself a raise it to $30. So the flexibility, the pay, the learning opportunities, being remote, like, who wouldn't want that?
Facts. Got a money question you want me to answer on the podcast? I'm starting a new segment on the show called City Girl Solutions, where I answer any questions you have for me. Money, business, life, you name it. Submit your questions at citygirlsavings.com/QA and get your question answered by me in a future episode. And did you know that we have so many free money resources on our blog, Instagram, and TikTok channels? Find us across the internet at City Girl Savings. And we are in this time of life where digital it's a thing. There's a whole industry, influencer marketing. Like, there's so much that goes into being online. And so there is definitely a need. But, you made a comment where you said that all a person needs to get started is their computer and the internet, which I agree with. But I think there is a misconception that a person or their VA company needs to maybe have a lot of followers on social media to make sales or sign clients. How would you help somebody shift that mindset? Like, do you believe that's true? And if not, how do you help someone work through that?
I don't believe it's true, because this year my account itself has seen explosive growth in the follower count. And a lot of those followers I think they're bots, because you can look at the account and tell if they're active. You can look at how many accounts they're following. And when that follower count doesn't even match, it's just like, this isn't even right. But the clients that I've worked for, they've had 6-figure businesses and they may have 700 followers. So it's like, I look at that. I look at what they're producing and putting out on their page and seeing what their message is saying. So as long as your message is out there and you're addressing like pain points to your intended client, that's all you need. Use relevant hashtags. I don't care what anybody says about like, the hashtags still work, because I have gained a lot of followers and clients through using industry related hashtags. And I may not have known what those hashtags are. So I go look at my client's page as a cheat sheet. Well, what hashtags do they use? And then I said, oh, well, maybe I need to use these hashtags too. And if they work, I keep using them. If they don't, I stop using them. But it's trial and error. But that follower account, like, I think we get hung up on that. And it's not even relevant. Just focus on your message, making sure that you're reaching your ideal client. And I think you have a good recipe for success right there.
So do you think social media is a good place for people to go look for their potential clients, or is there another avenue they can take?
I believe social media is a great place because you can also meet other virtual assistants, right? And let's say I do bookkeeping and someone reached out to me and was like, oh, Shatoria, do you know somebody who's a copywriter? And if there's another virtual assistant friend that I've been chatting with, oh, yeah, I know so-and-so. And I'll refer her to them. Or they'll say, Shatoria, I had 2 people reach out to me about bookkeeping. I'll refer them to you. So it's like you can create your own community with other virtual assistants, not a big one, but something small, and refer. You guys can refer clients to each other. But I think social media is a great place. I found all of my clients on Instagram, all of them.
Wow.
And I don't really use Facebook that much, but I know a friend of mine, she says she finds her clients on Facebook. I had another person say they found clients off of Pinterest because they use their blog posts to talk about different pain points. And through that, clients found her through a Pinterest page that redirected them to her blog. So I feel like social media is definitely a good place to find followers. There are virtual assistant companies out there because I've had people ask me about them, but I've never used a virtual assistant company, but I do know with a virtual assistant company, the difference is like they'll pay you. Whereas with you being a virtual assistant, like a freelancer, independent contractor, you get everything. Whereas with the company, you have to split that with them. So whatever they get, then you'll get a percentage off of that. And I've heard there's some good ones out there. I've done my research to see which ones are like within the top 5, but I've never used a virtual assistant company myself. I just do it freelance and have like that direct connection with those small business owners.
So with a virtual assistant company, though, it sounds like a VA would reach out to that company, and that company, if maybe they work with the VA, would almost outsource them to a pool of clients. Okay.
Like
so
matchmaking.
Okay. So it could take the search work out of it for an individual VA if they didn't want to do that, right? If they didn't want to search. Okay. It's good to know that's an option.
Yeah. And one thing is like, I've also noticed that with me making this change, I do get random emails that come to my inbox from people that'll be like, oh, I'm a realtor looking for this, this, and this, and that. In that, if you receive emails like that, I think it's important to pay attention to the email address to make sure it's legit. Like whatever the name is in there, I always research it. I put it in LinkedIn, I put it in Google to see if I can find something that matches. I look at the email to see if it's legit, because if your name is John Brown, but you're emailing me from an email that says like Amazon with the number 0 instead of an O at mail.com, it's like, wait a minute, this isn't even legit. So I block that. But it's important to pay attention to those small details like that, because there are a lot of people who scam. And if you're getting something like that directly to your email and you go into Instagram to look them up or LinkedIn and you can't find them and that email address looks suspicious, it's a scam. So that's something that a lot of new VAs should definitely look out for, because they will try to scam you. And I would hate for somebody to find themselves in a bad situation.
That you bring up such a good point, because obviously with the digital space growing the way it is, it only makes sense that there will be spammers and hackers and bots and things like that. So people just have to be on their P's and Q's to make sure they don't fall for things that they shouldn't.
Yeah. And be careful of everything that you put out there, because some people were so quick, oh, well, let's say they'll pay me X, Y, and Z. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Like, nobody's going to pay you $2,000 to research something that's going to take like 5 minutes. Like, that's just, no.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. So I want to shift gears a little bit, because me personally, I admire all that you have going on. I mean, you're a mom, you work full time, you're focused on paying off debt or budgeting and managing the household, being a VA, helping other people be a VA. What tips do you have for people who struggle with time management, number one? And how do you think you have been so good about managing your time to get everything done?
So for once, like I'll use my situation specifically. So we have the 3 boys and we have to communicate. So we have a shared calendar on our phones. So I'll put on there, hey, I have a discovery call. So it's synced between, like, we have a shared calendar that's on our calendar. So he'll see, oh, yes, I have a discovery call tonight, or I have a planning session with somebody. Okay. And I still remind him like, hey, remember, I have this tonight. Yeah, I know, I got it. Okay. Because then it's like, make sure you have like, you can't even hear my boys because he's out there making sure that they're not over here bothering me. And he does his own side hustle too. Like, he does photography. So if he's meeting with the client on Zoom or whatever, I make sure to take the boys like to the other side of the house, or I'll give them a bath or something. So they're not just like, hey, daddy, doing whatever. But communication helps so much if you have somebody at home with you. If you don't have somebody at home with you, you just got to plan and put alerts in your phone. Like for me, I have to put an alert in my phone to say like, oh yes, I do have that, because in the beginning I didn't put alerts in there, and I'd just be in the kitchen just like la 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 doing whatever, watching Wheel of Fortune, and it's like, oh shoot, I had a discovery call 15 minutes ago.
Shatoria, that was me today for our interview. I didn't put the alert on and I'm kicking myself, but you're absolutely right. Like, set yourself up for success.
But the good thing is, whenever that has happened, I've never had anybody be like, well, I'm just not going to work with you. Everyone was just like, it's okay. Well, what time works for you? Or we can still do it tonight, or we can do it tomorrow. Like, everybody has been flexible. And I think that's just the beauty of the virtual space as a whole, because it's just like, oh, girl, okay, well, we could do, like I told you, I'm like, that's fine because I have my issue going on earlier today. So that's just the beauty of it. Like, because in corporate, can you imagine like
No.
that lights, like they'll cut your head off.
Yeah, you're gone.
Yeah,
You're
it's just
out of
like,
here.
oh, so you can't be here when we asked you to be here, and we sent this invite to you 2 weeks ago or 2 days ago, and you said yes, you were coming. Like,
Yeah.
mm-mm.
So
Yeah.
alert. So what other advice do you have for time management?
For me, I have to write, even though like I have an alert, I still have to write it down because there's something about writing it down for me that just makes it just kind of stick in my mind. So I have like my happy planner, and then I have like a little dry erase on my refrigerator. So I might not write down exactly what it is, but it was like, hey, remember event on Sunday at such and such. So it's like, oh, because we go in the refrigerator every day. So it's like, oh, it's in my face. I see it. So put things in your face where you see it, because I'm infamous for leaving my phone on silent, but I'll still check it. But if I see something in my face, it's like, well, what's going on at 5 o'clock? Oh, but yeah, it's just important to plan. And when you plan, like, think about your schedule, like for real. If 5 o'clock on Sunday is like, you don't really have anything to do, that's good. But if you have something to do, or you have like, let's say you go to the grocery store at the same time every Saturday or whatever, and your body just goes to the store at that time, don't schedule something at that time because your body is accustomed to you not being there.
Yeah.
Do it when you're not tired. Don't schedule things late at night. Like if you can't do it, find time that works for you. And I think that's something that as you get into the virtual space, you'll realize like, wow, I can truly be flexible, and people will conform to that. They won't be like, well, I just can't. People will meet you where you're at, or it's like, wait, what times work for you? What's this? It's not like, well, you have to do it at 8 o'clock. I've never had that happen before, ever. Like everyone has been flexible for the most part. They'll ask me, well, what works for you? Because I know you work and I know you have children. And I'll say, hey, this is what it is for me. And we pick a date and time and we go from there.
Yeah. I will say for me personally, a calendar and scheduling system totally changed my life. Like, I don't know why I thought I could just schedule things myself and not have to worry about it. I can't tell you how many times I double booked or calls
Yeah.
ran over. I'm scrambling. Set yourself up for success with a calendar like Acuity or Calendly.
Yeah.
Like, they make a huge
Oh,
difference.
yeah, those schedulers help out in so many ways. And it's weird because I think for me, I always try to see like, oh, I'm going to remember. No, I'm not. I'm not going to remember it. These tools and these systems were created for a reason. Use them.
Right. I agree
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
Okay. So this kind of leads me to my next question. What advice would you give to moms or just women who feel overwhelmed with their current responsibilities, but they know they need to make more money? What advice would you give?
To pace yourself, I guess. And like I said, women in general, moms, we always feel like we have to make sure everything is okay. Everybody's good. Everybody's happy. And we tend to put ourselves last. And I don't want us as women doing that. Like we're nurturers by nature. And it's like you have to do something for you, because if you don't do something for you, you'll find yourself unhappy and miserable and just feeling like you have no purpose, and it doesn't feel good to feel like that. So even starting out as a mom, you say, you know what, well, I'll just take on one client, and see how that works for me. And then you can, with that one client, you can see, okay, well, you know what, this isn't too bad. I could probably add in another client, but you never want to take on more than what you can handle, because at the end of the day, you don't want the virtual assistant side hustle or job or business or what have you just take over from your family life to the point where it's like you can't do the things that you enjoy with your family and your kids. You don't want that to just overshadow that. I found for me in taking clients, I want to make sure I worked with people who understood that, hey, I have small kids. So if we have a Zoom, and there have been occasions where my fiance may not be home and it's just me and them. So my oldest will run in and hear me talking and be in front of the camera like, hi, what is your name? I like the color blue. He'll do random things like that. And the clients that I'm having those calls with, they're just like, oh my God, he is so cute. Like, make sure you're talking to somebody who's aware of that and accepting. And I put it out there like, hey, my kids are here. My spouse isn't here yet. And they're like, oh, okay, well, that's okay. My son is in the other room too. So if he comes out, don't be alarmed. So it's like, okay, we got some type of commonality. We both know we're moms. Cool. The same thing with having the full-time job. I let my potential clients know, hey, I have a full-time job. So a lot of my correspondence will probably be after 8 o'clock at night. Or I try not to do things on Saturday. I mean, I probably do some VA work, but I try not to talk directly to the client on the weekend because I do want to have at least some time, like not talking to them or whatever, like boundaries. Right. But I like to just let my clients know, like, hey, these are the expectations. But in order for me to get there, I had to set boundaries within myself to say, this is what I'm going to tell this client. I don't want to just take on somebody, oh, yeah, it's okay. When in the back of my head, it's like, oh, yeah, he has soccer on Tuesday. But I just told this lady, yeah, I can meet with her Tuesday at 5 o'clock. And I'm at the soccer game like, hey, how are you? Okay, hold up. Like,
yeah,
no. And if something happens, communicate. If something happens where he had baseball and his baseball team randomly decided at 4 o'clock that they were going to have his game Tuesday at 6. It's like, you guys just decided that today? So then I had to tell my client, hey, I just found out my son's game is at 6 o'clock today. They rescheduled it from Saturday to today. We can't meet. And they were always like, it's okay. Just, let me know when we can meet. And we re-met and it was fine. Just give yourself grace, pace yourself, and don't take on too much. You can't take on too much. Although we feel like we want to, don't do it. Because at the end of the day, that's going to burn you out. And then you may not find yourself doing this. So.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And, as we approach the end of this discussion, I am curious, and I think the listeners would be too, what does your current schedule look like, high level, if you don't mind sharing? Like, how do you do both?
So I work my corporate job Monday through Friday. I'm on a hybrid schedule. So Monday and Friday, I'm home, and every other Wednesday, I'm in the office. But Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm always in the office. So I try not to do a lot on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Fridays are pretty much like quiet for me. So if I can squeeze in some VA work because I have a lot of downtime sometimes at work. So on those days I have a lot of downtime and I know like I don't have anything to do, I'll do some VA work there. But I tend to work when my boys are asleep. So we usually have them in bed by maybe like 8:15, 8:30 at the latest. And I'm usually doing VA work between like 9 and 11 or maybe 9 and 10:30. It just depends on what all I have to do. And then I make sure I'm in bed, I do what I need to do, and then I get up to go to work in the morning. But on the weekends, I might wake up Saturday morning and get some VA stuff done in the morning. And then I probably won't get any more done until like maybe Saturday night or early Sunday morning. So I just pretty much pace it based off of like those hours of availability. And I make sure like if I take on a new client, I should be offboarding somebody or not working with somebody, because if I know in my head, oh, I want to work with 5 people, I'm not still going to work with 5 people and try to take on 5 more because that's still too much. Right. Ultimately, I would love to do this full time, but until I get to that point, I don't want to burn myself out to the point where I'm showing up to my 9 to 5 tired and just like groggy and I can't get my job done there.
Right. Oh, I think that's really inspiring, especially for someone who does want to get started as a VA, but, is not in a place where they can leave their full-time job. I think that's really inspiring. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, you're welcome.
Okay. So before we wrap, what advice would you give to someone who is listening and they're like, I want to do this. I want to become a VA. Like, what is their next step?
So their next step is to, number one, do like mindset. Keep telling yourself that you can do it, because it's so easy to get out there and see so many different virtual assistant accounts and get discouraged and be like, oh my God, her account looks so good. Ignore that stuff. Be confident in your abilities and what you can do. Say affirmations. Like the affirmations work because if you keep saying that, you believe it. If you continuously to say that, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, I don't know, you're going to keep saying you don't know. And then 3 years later, you're going to want to start this business again and wish you would have done it 3 years ago. So stop being hard on yourself. And if you want to start, just start. You don't have to have a website. You do not have to have a website. I tell people that all the time. You do not have to have a website. Use your Instagram account. Use your Facebook account. Use LinkedIn, even Twitter. And you can link your scheduler in like your bio. So a lot of times, if you look at some individuals, their bios will say like, click here or interested, click here to learn more. That link can direct them straight to your scheduler. They don't know that it's not your website. Let LinkedIn be your website. Let Instagram be your website. Like your message, if it resonates well with them, they could care less if you have a website or not. A lot of people don't even have websites. It might take them 5 years to get one. That's an extra expense that you don't need. But people get hung up on that thinking, oh, I have to have colors like me. I have to have colors and branding. No, you don't. Just set up an Instagram page. It's free. Facebook is free. All of this stuff is free. The mindset, work on your mindset. And if you know that, you know what, I'm good at creating graphics. I love to type. I can type XYZ words a minute and I can do this, or I can create PDFs, or I'm a virtual bookkeeper, whatever it is that you do. Be confident in what you do. Think about things or tasks that you've done. And it doesn't have to be in a virtual space. It could be, what did you do at work? And that's what helped to push me out there. I made training manuals. I was doing workshops. I was creating job aids telling people how to download a bank statement, because everybody may not know how to download a bank statement, but those are SOPs. A lot of creatives need SOPs in their businesses, and they're looking for people to help them put them together. So it's like you just have to brain dump, I guess, and think about skills that you've done in the corporate space and even volunteer work. Like there are a lot of people that I know, I grew up in church. There are a lot of people that work at the church and do a lot of programs, and let's say they're workshops or outreach type of things. Like you might need someone to say, hey, are you good with pitching to brands? Oh yeah, I've done outreach with my church. I reached out to Winn-Dixie or Publix and this and that for sponsorship. All of that type of stuff. Write it down because it's relevant experience. And we're so quick to say, well, I don't know, I don't think I can. But when you start writing it down, you realize that you've done more than what you give yourself credit for. And as a newbie, we just look at it, oh, I'm new. You have the experience. Now, if it's something you don't have the experience in and you want to learn more about it, I suggest YouTube. And people are like, why do you tell them that? Because like with me getting ready to go into virtual bookkeeping, I have my QuickBooks certification, but there are certain areas of QuickBooks that I'm not familiar with, because in the corporate side, I didn't have to deal with QuickBooks as an accountant. I dealt with like Oracle and things like that. But Intuit has an account on YouTube with videos that they create that teach you how to use QuickBooks or how to do certain areas and how to use certain functions within their software. It's free. So we can't just shoot ourselves in the foot by saying we don't know. Just do a search and find it, and you'll see there's so much information out there that can help you, and you don't have to pay for it. We get caught up on prices, and it's free. You don't have to pay for it.
So to summarize, someone's next steps would be get their Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn page set up, get their mindset right, create a list of your current skills, responsibilities, experiences, things that you already know how to do, and then start pushing your message out there. Start looking for people who are looking for those things.
Oh, and another thing is engage and make sure you talk to people on Instagram. It's good to post content, but if there's nobody engaging with it, what's the point? So try to find those people that if you're not sure of who you want to work with, you know, you may start with content creators, coaches. Some virtual assistants need virtual assistants. So start with a virtual assistant, you know, start that conversation, because there are so many people out there willing to help out. You can barter maybe, but engage and network. That helps in so many ways.
That I think is great advice. And I think This conversation, I hope, inspires someone who is thinking about becoming a VA or hadn't even thought it was possible, but now they know it definitely is. So I thank you so much for all that you shared. And before we do go, I would love to know, like, what's next for you? Like, what's next for your companies? Like, where are you headed?
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this interview. So I'm actually getting ready to pivot out of virtual assisting and go more towards the virtual bookkeeping because I found that I really enjoy doing that. And I've done it for a few years now. I've actually been doing it from one client for 3 years now. And I just find that I really enjoy it. The flexibility for me is awesome. And so it's my goal to eventually go into that full time. So I'm praying, I'm trusting God that it's going to work out and it will. But that's the direction that I want to go in. But I still want to continue to coach and encourage women to become virtual assistants so that they can make additional money from home and give themselves a raise and not always have to rely on your job to give you one. Give yourself a raise. So I want to be able to support those women and help them figure out how they can get started. And even once they get started, if they need the additional support, I want to be there to be like their personal cheerleader.
I love that. And I just know what you set out to do, Shatoria, you are going to do. So sending you all the good vibes. Good luck.
Thank
You got
you.
this.
Thank you.
Where can listeners follow you or learn more about you if they want to keep up?
So they can actually find me on Countin Mama on Instagram. Everything that they want to know about me, they could find me on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, under Countin Mama or under Shatoria Smith. Those two pages are connected. I'm always on LinkedIn and Instagram. So they send me a private message or write on my wall or whatever it is, I'll be sure to comment.
Wonderful. I will definitely link to your profiles in the show notes. And again, thank you so much for being here and for sharing. It was very informative.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into City Girl Savings today. I hope you feel empowered and inspired to master your money as you make your way to your dream life. Make sure you subscribe so you're the first to know when a new episode comes out. I truly value your thoughts and feedback, so please leave a review and let me know how this podcast has impacted you. Can't wait to chat soon and make it a great day.